Hey everyone, this is Don Russo presenting another one of these videos about the upcoming presidential campaign debate. Right now it is Tuesday night, June 24th. In about 48 hours, you're going to have a debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in Atlanta, hosted by CNN. Assuming it's going to go forward, there's been a lot of controversy. My assumption is 48 hours out that it's going to go forward. So I've been thinking about, and I've been posting on my X account, a number of questions that I would just suggest that might be good for President Trump to ask of Joe Biden. Presumably he's going to be allowed during his time to ask questions, even if they are rhetorical questions. See if Biden wants to answer those questions. The first thing I would say is, hey Joe, what medications are you on tonight? Did you take any drugs to prepare yourself for this? Prescription drugs. We're not talking about illegal substances, but did your doctors administer anything like Adderall or any other type of drugs tonight? And of course, you could expect Biden at this point to get angry and say that it's medical privacy and he has no obligation to tell Trump anything, etc. And then the next thing I would follow up with, if I was Trump, would be, is that why you would never agree or refuse to agree to a drug test? I had requested a drug test before this debate tonight, and you never responded, never agreed to it. I think that might be set an interesting framework for the rest of the debate. Second thing I'd ask him is about the famous classified documents. I'd say, hey Joe, while you were senator or vice president vice president, did you ever take any documents that had been classified by the United States government as classified? After his answer, you say, well, if you took any documents, did you ever deal with those documents in any way? Did you ever give them away or sell them or show them to anybody or let your ghostwriter look at those documents? Where did you keep them, and what were your safeguarding provisions for those documents? Did you notify the National Archives that you had them? I know you said that they were safe because they were in the garage by your Corvette. Do you still stand by the answer? You still think that's a safe place to keep the documents? Another question I think really has to be asked, because it's an open matter. It hasn't been resolved. It hasn't been addressed. I'd say, hey Joe, why are you not agreeing to let the audio tape of your interview with Robert Hur be turned over to the House of Representatives? Now, of course, Joe Biden is going to squawk about that. He might try to blame it on Merrick Garland, that Merrick Garland has come up with a theory about the audio tape being a executive privilege matter. Of course, the riposte for Trump could be, well, how could it be covered by executive privilege when you already they voluntarily turned over a transcript of the interview? So what could be possibly covered by executive immunity in the audio tape portion? It would be interesting to see if Biden tries to blame it on Merrick Garland. Like, well, I had nothing to do with it. Merrick Garland and the Attorney General won't turn it over. I think a follow-up to that would be, well, he works for you. He works for you. You could tell him to turn it over, and that should be the end of it. I would also ask, Joe, did you read Robert Hur's report? Did you see that Robert Hur says that he believed, he found that you had violated certain statutes regarding classified documentation, but he said he wasn't going to bring a prosecution against you because you were too forgetful, old, mentally feeble, mentally incompetent to stand trial. Do you agree with Robert Hur that you're not capable or competent to stand trial? Now, I guess that is obviously not going to go over well with Biden. He's going to get angry and vituperative, and he'll probably start sputtering things out that he doesn't agree with that assessment made by Robert Hur. And of course, the great follow-up to that would be, all right, Joe, you say you don't agree with Robert Hur's conclusion you don't agree with Robert Hur's characterization of your performance. So would you agree that Robert Hur could then come tomorrow and have you arrested for the violations that he reported in the Hur report? Now, another question I think needs to be asked is, hey Joe, during our 2020 presidential debate, I brought up the fact that your son Hunter's laptop revealed some very, very terrible information, and you retorted to that in front of Chris Wallace. You said that that was Russian disinformation. We have it on video. You know you said it. It's there as a matter of record. So, Joe, my question to you today is, do you still stand by what you said in 2020, namely that your son's laptop information was Russian disinformation? If Joe Biden attempts to adhere to his prior position, you could, of course, bring up the fact that the Hunter Biden laptop was entered as evidence for the prosecution by the Department of Justice special counsel in the recent trial of Hunter Biden. I can't imagine that Biden is going to do a mea culpa on his 2020 answers, but it would be very interesting to see whether or not Biden simply says, I was wrong, I was misled, or whatever. This needs to be addressed. I really feel that this is the most important. This circle has to be closed. 2020, it was called Russian disinformation. That may indeed have affected the outcome of that election. So I think it needs to be asked again, and Biden needs to be pressed to give a response. I don't think that would be asking for too much, given the fact that this is old territory that we're treading over. Of course, the next question would involve Afghanistan. The questions about the precipitous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Joe, why did you do it the way you did it? Why did you withdraw the troops first? Why did you leave all the equipment? Why did you leave the Air Force Base? Why did you leave people behind? And what could you have done to avoid the 13 brave U.S. troops who were killed by a car bomber? After reports came in that the car bomber had been spotted by snipers who were denied permission to fire on the car bomber. No need to get into Joe looking at his watch at Dover Air Force Base, and everybody saw that. Another interesting question might be, Joe, tell the American people which U.S. presidents in the history of the United States have attempted to have their political opponents jailed. Tell us, Joe, right now. What was it? Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Lincoln, Grant, Woodrow Wilson, Franklin. Tell us which president, other than you, tried to have his opponents jailed. It'd be interesting to see what Biden has to say about that. Now we get into the next question about Matthew Colangelo and the Alvin Bragg trial in Manhattan. I would say, Joe, did you have your third in line at the Justice Department, Matthew Colangelo, leave his job in Washington, leave his job at the DOJ, and go to Manhattan to work as an assistant DA with Alvin Bragg? Did you send him to do that? Now, Joe could be expected to say something like, I don't handle details like that. Then it could be, well, did your Attorney General, Merrick Garland, send Matthew Colangelo to go work with Alvin Bragg? Or how about Lisa Monaco? Did Lisa Monaco send Matthew Colangelo to go work with Alvin Bragg? You can go right down the list of the top operatives at the Department of Justice, because we all know that Matthew Colangelo left the Department of Justice to go work with Alvin Bragg to bring those charges against Trump. Following up on that, it would be, hey, Joe, did you ever meet with Fani Willis? Did you ever meet with Nathan Wade? Did you ever meet with Letitia James? Did you ever meet with Judge Engeron? Did you ever meet with Judge Merchan? If he says no, then I think I would follow up with, did any of the individuals I just mentioned meet with Kamala Harris? Or did any of the individuals I just mentioned meet with any other Biden administration official? I think it's already public record that, for example, Fani Willis was in Washington, D.C. So it would be interesting to see whether or not Biden admits that he met with these people or that he had people under him meet with these people. I would also ask Joe Biden about Jack Smith, following up on some of those questions that um, the Congress, Tom Massey, for example, was asking Merrick Garland in a recent hearing about some of the matters mentioned in the amicus curiae brief that was filed in January. Um, Tom Massey asked Merrick Garland, "Is there a statute? Is there a statute that Jack Smith was appointed under?" No, he was appointed under regulation. Merrick Garland said, and then he was asked, "Was Jack Smith ever confirmed by the Senate?" No, that was the answer. Did President Biden appoint Jack Smith? No. It turns out that Merrick Garland was the one that selected Jack Smith. Um, Now, Merrick Garland mentioned the Independent Counsel Act. The Independent Counsel Act in the late 90s was declared to be unconstitutional. That was up after the whole um, problem with Bill Clinton and the impeachment and Ken Starr. The Supreme Court declared the Independent Counsel statute to be illegal. There was never another statute passed. Congress passed the buck. Janet Reno, they passed some regulations in 1999, the Special Counsel regulations. So it would be interesting to find out from Joe Biden directly how Jack Smith got where he is now and under what authority is he acting. Of course, Biden will deny any knowledge of this whatsoever, but at least it'll be on record. Um, Joe Biden should also be asked why he said that his daughter Ashley's diary was not true. I think he called that Russian disinformation. He said it was a made-up fantasy story. I think James O'Keefe was raided by the FBI to get a copy of the diary, and now Ashley Biden has informed the court that is her diary. So Joe Biden should be asked why he previously did not admit that was Ashley Biden, his daughter's diary. Another question I think we'd all like to hear is, hey Joe, did your son Hunter ever bring cocaine into the White House? Are you aware whether or not he ever brought cocaine into the White House? I think that's going to be, again, an explosive answer, but the people want to know. The American people want to know. I think Trump certainly has a right to ask whether or not Hunter Biden ever brought any illegal drugs, controlled substances into the White House, and perhaps ask whether or not his security clearance has ever been revoked, given the fact that he was recently found guilty by that jury. Getting back to 2020, and this has been bandied about for almost 4 years, I would say, hey Joe, on the late night of November 3rd, 2020, around 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, around that time, who ordered the counting to be stopped in the swing states of Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada? Who ordered the counting to be stopped? Did you? Was it Obama that ordered it? And how was it coordinated? Why did they all stop at the same time? Did you get any information about the so-called broken water main in Fulton County? Where were you that night? What were you doing? I think it's fair game for questions. I would also ask, if I was Trump, I'd say, hey Joe, do you want to debate me every week? Let's have one of these debates every week. I'll supply the pizza and the Pepsi. Every Thursday night, would you like to debate me, Joe? You said you'll debate me anytime, anywhere. I'm giving you the opportunity now to agree to debate me every week up between now and November. Wouldn't that be interesting to see what that answer is? I think Donald Trump should also ask Biden, hey Joe, is China an enemy of the United States? This has never been answered by Biden. Is China an enemy of the United States? Is Iran an enemy of the United States? Is Hezbollah an enemy of the United States? Joe Biden should be asked those questions. I would also bring up if I was Donald Trump, I would bring up the Steele dossier. I'd say, Joe, did you know that did you think that the Steele dossier, the information in the Steele dossier was correct? Did you think it was true information? Did you ever read it? Were you ever shown the dossier? Did you ever discuss the dossier with anyone? Have you read the Durham report? Do you know that the Durham report, as well as Michael Horowitz, said that there was no truth to the Steele dossier? And I'd say, Joe, to this date, do you believe that the Steele dossier contained any information that was true? And who paid for it, Joe? Did you know that Hillary Clinton's campaign paid for the Steele dossier? Were you aware of that in 2017, in 2016? And I'd also say, were you aware that while you were still in office, while you were still vice president under Barack Obama, 3 FISA warrants were submitted to get surveillance on Donald Trump. Now, there was a 4th one filed right after Trump was sworn in, but those 3 FISA warrants that were submitted to the court while you were vice president, did you know about that? Was this run by you? Did anybody discuss this with you? Did you talk to Obama about this? Did you know whether or not the information that was submitted in those FISA warrants was correct? Because as it turns out, it was not correct information. It was based on the Steele dossier, which was proven to be false. Let him answer those questions. I think they're really important. I would also ask Joe Biden, Joe, did you ever read the Durham report? Specifically pages 91 to 101 about the meeting that took place in August of 2016. John Durham's report, around page 96, says that in August of 2019, you, Joe, and Barack Obama were in the Oval Office. You met with John Brennan, and John Brennan discussed with you what he referred to as, quote, the Clinton intelligence. And that was the information that was part of the Steele dossier. And John Brennan, according to the Durham report, kind of referred to the Clinton intelligence as not being worthy of really further inquiry. I'd like to ask Joe Biden if he recalls that meeting and if he recalls John Brennan discussing the, quote, Clinton intelligence. I would also ask about a statement made in the Durham report where Durham referred to John Brennan saying about the Clinton foreign policy advisor number 1. I'd say, Joe, who is Clinton foreign policy advisor number 1? A lot of us suspect that Clinton foreign policy advisor number 1 was Sullivan, John Sullivan. Andrew, I forget his first name, but Jake Sullivan. Was Jake Sullivan the Clinton foreign policy advisor number 1 cited in the Durham report? No one's ever really answered that, but it's been asked many, many times. So those are just a few of the questions, the fundamental threshold questions that need to be asked. I don't know what kind of obstreperous resistance that Trump's going to get from Dana Bash or Jake Tapper. We all recall in 2020 the outrageous interference by Chris Wallace where he wouldn't let Trump talk. I'll never forget that, and I think a lot of us still remember that. That was above and beyond the call of a moderator's duty. It was clearly outrageous, and I think Trump has every right to answer or to ask these questions that I've submitted in this video, and more, a lot more. I mean, I went through these in a few minutes, so there's going to be an hour and a half, and these questions may not be comfortable for Biden, but they do need to be asked, and I hope that they are asked on Thursday. Thank you.